My name is Stephane, and I'm coming from Ottawa. I work for the Canadian Council of Muslim Women, though I'm not a Muslim woman. I am the national coordinator of Project Communitas, and we are an organization aiming to promote individual and community resilience across the country. Um, in the past few months, we've been running workshops across Canada, so in 7 different cities, working with young people 18 to 30 from various communities, and really trying to have an honest conversation on what does it mean to overcome trauma individually and collectively. What does it mean to empower yourself to be civically engaged? What does it mean to be a leader? What does it mean to be a change maker? And sort of we've been exploring those topics as a means to create resilience in the face of immense crisis, because we see what's going on in the world. People are joining violent causes. People are being radicalized. People are losing hope in humanity. People are feeling increasingly more apolitical, increased apathy. So we're trying to tackle that by trying to have these meaningful conversations across Canada, and by providing tools that can help young individuals and communities become more active participants in society, to increase social interdependence, to make friends and feel more loved. We're learning a variety of things. I mean, we're from basically learning about how can we cope, what is activism, self-care, so how do you remain strong when you realize that your own ambitions are not being met, and your community engagement is not being fruitful. So how do you remain healthy in those times? So really that individual resilience, but also like practical things such as media engagement, learning how the media works, learning how to reclaim a narrative, whether it be on social media or mainstream media. We've looked at religious literacy, so trying to understand what does religious diversity mean, how does it look like. We've looked at civic engagement issues regarding civic engagement, relationships between community members and law enforcement agencies, and so on, and trying to really understand the scope of what does it mean to be a resilient individual, and what does it mean to be a resilient community. So, I mean, one of the things that's really crucial, and we discussed it today, was the importance of having formal involvement and informal involvement. One of the things that we found in our own project is that when you create an event discussing important issues on an institutional level, or on an official institutional level, you'll find that the individuals who come to these events are already resilient. They're already people who already have skills. So very often we're stuck preaching to the converted, preaching to the ones who already believe in what's being said. What we're interested in is how do we reach out to the young people who are socially isolated, the ones who we call them at risk. I don't really like the term at risk, but the ones who are potentially prone to a path of violence, or a path of isolation, or a path of a traumatic path. We're interested in these young people, and so that's where the informal aspect comes. Informal mentorship, informal relationships that are not governed by policy, but relationships that are governed by love and sincerity and good intentions. Really, that is incredibly powerful, and we've seen cases where, if you look at just individuals that may have been either going towards a path of violence, towards a path of gangs, the role of mentorship and the role of elders and the role of just more mature individuals is incredibly important and undervalued, especially by policymakers and program coordinators. Well, I think it's interesting to bring a bunch of individuals who are working with similar goals and all have different ideas and different experiences. The very notion of sharing story is the best way to kind of start recognizing that there's multiple ways to look at the same object. We're all staring at an elephant, but some of us are only looking at the tail. Others are only looking at the trunk. Others are looking at the feet, and we all have a different interpretation of what the solution is. So these kind of sessions are very important to bring people together, to share best practices, and to come out with a stronger unified network. Because if you look at Canada, we're a vast country. We're a country that federally speaking, coast to coast, very often the culture of the West is very different than the culture of the East, just in our country. So trying to understand what are sort of the implications and what does it mean to be a Canadian citizen is very important in these sessions.